outside world was a strange and tempting place, and you longed to touch it in a way network TV couldn't match. At least I did. All these things were at your fingertips, courtesy of AT&T and Steve Jobs. There was another app as well, one that made me think of Mr. Harrigan even on that first joyful morning. Something much cooler than the satellite radio in his car, at least for guys like him. Thanks, Dad, I said, and hugged him. Thank you so much. Just don't overuse it. The phone charges are sky high, and I'll be keeping track. They'll come down, I said. I was right about that, and Dad never gave me a hard time about the charges. I didn't have many people to call anyway, but I did like those YouTube videos, and I loved being able to go on what we then called the 3 Ws, the World Wide Web. Sometimes I would look at articles in Pravda, not because I understood Russian, but just because I could. Not quite 2 months later, I came home from school, opened the mailbox, and found an envelope addressed to me in Mr. Harrigan's old-fashioned script. It was my Valentine's Day card. I went into the house, dropped my schoolwork on the table, and opened it. The card wasn't flowery or sappy. That wasn't Mr. Harrigan's style. It showed a man in a tuxedo holding out a top hat and bowing in a field of flowers. The hallmark message inside said, "May you have a year filled with love and friendship." Below that, good wishes for Mr. Harrigan. A bowing man with his hat held out. A good wish, no sticky stuff. That was Mr. Harrigan all over. Looking back, I'm surprised he considered Valentine's Day worth a card. In 2008, the Lucky Devil $1 scratchers had been replaced by ones called Pine Tree Cash. There were 6 pine trees on the little card. If the same amount was beneath 3 of them, when you scratched them off, you won that amount. I scratched away the trees and stared at what I had discovered. At first, I thought it was either a mistake or some kind of joke. Although Mr. Harrigan was not the joke-playing type, I looked again, running my fingers along the uncovered numbers, brushing away crumbles of what my dad called scratch dirt. The numbers stayed the same. I might have laughed, I can't recall, but I remember screaming all right, screaming for joy. I grabbed my new phone out of my pocket and called Parmelo Tractors. I got Denise, the receptionist, and when she heard how out of breath I was, she asked me what was wrong. Nothing, but I have to talk to my dad right now. All right, just hold on. And then, you sound like you're calling from the other side of the moon, Craig. I'm on my cell phone. God, I love saying that. Denise made a humph sound. Those things are full of radiation. I'd never owned one. Hold on. My dad also asked me what was wrong because I've never called him at work before, even on the day the school bus left without me. Dad, I got my Valentine's Day scratch ticket from Harrigan. If you called to tell me you won $10, you could have waited until No, Dad, it's the big prize. Which it was. For dollar scratch-offs back then. I won $3,000. Silence from the other end on the line. I thought maybe I'd lost him. In those days, cell phones, even the new ones, dropped calls all the time. Ma Belle wasn't always the best mother. Dad, are you still there? Are you sure? Yes, I'm looking right at it. 3,000. 1 in the top row and 2 in the bottom. Another long pause. Then I heard my father telling someone, I think my kid wants some money. A moment later, it was back to me. Put it somewhere safe until I get home. Where? How about the sugar canister in the pantry? Yeah, I said. Yeah, okay. Craig, are you positive? I don't want to be disappointed, so check again. I did. somehow convinced that my dad's doubt would change what I had seen. At least one of those 3,000s would now be something else. But they were the same. I told him that, and he laughed. Well then, congratulations. Marshall's tonight, and you're buying. That made me laugh. I can't remember ever feeling such a pure joy. I needed to call someone, so I called Mr. Harrigan, who answered on his Luddite landline. Mr. Harrigan, thank you for the card, and thank you for the ticket. Are you calling on that gadget of yours? He asked. You must be, because I can barely hear you. You sound like you're on the other side of the moon. Mr. Harrigan, I won the big prize. I won $3,000. Thank you so much. There was a pause, but not as long as my father's. And when he spoke again, he didn't ask me if I was sure. He did me that courtesy. You struck lucky, he said. Good for you. Thank you. You're welcome. But thanks really aren't necessary. I buy those things by the roll. Send them off to friends and business acquaintances as a kind of calling card, you could say. Been doing it for years. One was bound to pay off big sooner or later. Dad will make me put most of it in the bank. I guess that's okay. It will certainly perk up my college fund. Give it to me if you like, Mr. Harrigan said. Let me invest it for you. I think I can guarantee a better return than bank interest. Then, speaking more to himself than to me, something very safe. This isn't going to be a good year for the market. I see clouds on the horizon. Sure, I reconsidered. At least probably I have to talk to my dad. Of course, only proper. Tell him I'm willing to also guarantee the base sum. Are you still coming to read for me this afternoon? Or will you put that aside, now that you're a man of means? Sure, only I have to be back when Dad gets home. We're going out for dinner. I paused. Would you like to come? Not tonight, he said, with no hesitation. You know, you could have told me all of this in person, since you're coming up anyway. But you enjoy that gadget of yours, don't you? He didn't wait for me to answer that. He didn't need that. What do you think of investing your little windfall in Apple stock? I believe that company is going to be quite successful in the future. I'm hearing the iPhone is going to bury the BlackBerry. Pardon the pun. In any case, don't answer now. Discuss it with your father first. I will, I said. And I'll be right up. I'll run. Youth is a wonderful thing, said Mr. Harrigan. What a shame it's wasted on children. Huh? Many have said it, but Shaw said it the best. Never mind, run by all means. Run like the Dickens, because Dickens awaits us. I ran the quarter of a mile to Mr. Harrigan's house, but walked back. And on the way, I had no idea. A way to thank him? Even though he said no thanks were necessary, over our fancy dinner at Marshall's that night, I told Dad about Mr. Harrigan's offer to invest my windfall. And I also told him my idea for a thank you gift. I thought Dad would have his doubts, and I was right. By all means, let him invest the money. As for your idea, you know how he feels about stuff like that. He's not only the richest man in Harlow, and the whole state of Maine, for that matter, he's also the only one who doesn't have a television. He's got an elevator, I said, and he uses it because he has to. Then Dad gave me a grin. But it's your money, and if this is what you want to do with a 20% of it, I'm not going to tell you no. When he turns it down, you can give it to me. You really think he will? I do. Dad, why did he come here in the first place? I mean, we're just a little town. We're nowhere. Good question. Ask him sometime. Now, what about some dessert? Big spender. Just about a month later, I gave Mr. Harrigan a brand new iPhone. I didn't wrap it up or anything. Partly because it wasn't a holiday, and partly because I knew how he liked things done. With no foo-rah-rah. He turned the box over a time or two in his arthritis-gnarled hands, looking bemused. Then he held it out to me. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate the sentiment. But no, I suggest you give it to your father. I took the box. He told me you'd say that. I was disappointed but not surprised and not ready to give up. Your father is a wise man. He leaned forward in his chair and clasped his hands between his spread knees. Craig, I barely give advice. It's almost always a waste of breath. But today I'll give some to you. Henry Thoreau said that we don't own things, things own us. Every new object, whether it's a home, a car, a television, or a fancy home, or a fancy phone like that one, is something more we must carry on our backs. It makes me think of Jacob Marlowe telling Scrooge, "These are the chains I forged in life. I don't have a television because if I did, I would watch it. Even though almost all of what it broadcasts is utter nonsense. I don't have a radio in the house because I would listen to it. And a little country music to break the monotony of a long drive is really all I require, if I had that." He pointed to the box with the phone inside. "I would probably undoubtedly use it. I get 12 different periodicals in the mail, and they contain all the information I need to keep up with the business world and the wider world's sad doings." He sat back inside. There, I've not only given advice, I've made a speech. Old age is insidious. Can I show you just one thing? No, two, I said. He gave me one of the looks I'd seen him give his gardener and his housekeepers, but had never turned my way until that afternoon. Piercing, skeptical, and rather ugly. These years later, I realize it's the look a perceptive and cynical man gives when he believes he can see inside most people and expects to find nothing good. This only proves the old saying that no good deed goes unpunished. I'm starting to wish that scratch ticket hadn't been a winner, he sighed. Well, go ahead. Give me your demonstration, but you won't change my mind. Having received that look, a distant and so cold, I thought he was right. I'd end up giving the phone to my father after all. And since I'd come this far, I went ahead. The phone was charged to the max. I'd made sure of that and was in a apple pie working order. I turned it on and showed him an icon in the second row. It had jagged lines, sort of like an EKG printout. See that one? Yes, and I see what it says, but I really don't need a stock market report, Craig. I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, as you know. Sure, I agreed, but the Wall Street Journal can't do this. I tapped the icon and opened the app. The Dow Jones average appeared. I had no idea what the numbers meant, but I could see they were fluctuating. 14,720 rose to 14,728, then dropped to 14,704, then pumped up to 14,716. Mr. Harrigan's eyes widened. His mouth dropped down. It was as if someone had hit him with a juju stick. He took the phone and held it close to his face. Then he looked at me. Are these numbers in real time? Yes, I said. Well, I guess they might be a minute or two behind. I don't know for sure. The phone's pulling them in front from the new phone tower in Motown. We're lucky to have one so close. He leaned forward. A reluctant smile touched the corners of his mouth. I'll be damned. It's like the stock tickers magnates used to have in their own homes. Oh, way better than that, I said. Tickers sometimes run hours behind. My dad said that just last night. He's fascinated with his stock market thingy. He's always taking my phone to look. He said one of the reasons the stock market tanked so bad back in 1929 was because the more people traded, the farther behind the ticker got.